tips for best results. Tip 1. Due to the difficult nature of the casting procedure, it can be difficult to get casting stone up into the finger portions of the mold if the fingers are curved upward, such as in a partial fist. Air tends to get trapped in the fingertips if in this position, and the stone usually cannot fill them properly. The fingers will then appear to have been sliced off. It is okay to curve the fingers as long as the fingertips are overall at the lowest point in the molding bucket, or to have a tight fist or firm grasp on other hand. Tip 2. Regarding fingernails. If the subject has fingernails that they wish to be preserved in the casting, place a small amount of clay or similar behind the nails prior to making the mold to make them about 2 to 3 times thicker than normal. This will help prevent the nails from breaking off the finished statue, and the added thickness is hardly noticeable. Tip 3. It is best to have an extra person available that is not involved in the casting process to read the instructions, mix molding powder, and attend to any children that may be involved in the process. Tip 4. Add the powder to the water, not the other way around. Lack of water at any time can cause the material to bond and set prematurely. Tip 5. Both the Step 1 molding powder and the Step 2 casting stone react with water in order to perform their functions. Therefore, if you have any questions about the pH level or the level of minerals, the hardness of your tap water, it is best to use distilled water. Step 1. Making the mold. For an easier cleanup process, lay newspaper or another protective material on your working surface before you begin. Next, measure out exactly 12 cups, 2.8 liters of cool water, and pour into your empty molding bucket. The exact set time of the molding material is controlled by temperature. Slightly cool water, 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 24 degrees Celsius, works best as it's comfortable for most people and gives 6 to 9 minutes of total set time. For the most working time, 10 to 15 minutes plus, use cold water. Do not use warm water or mix near a heat source, as that will cause the material to set very quickly. Timing starts when the powder enters the water. Before adding the molding powder to the water, practice posing the hands inside the bucket of water to make sure it will be comfortable for everyone. Massage water onto the hands as if applying lotion and leave damp, but not dripping wet. You can also add a drop of baby oil and massage onto the hands to hold the moisture. This will help reduce surface air bubbles in the mold. Once everyone is ready, empty the bag of molding powder into the water. To make mixing less messy, add about 2/3 of the powder into the water, mix for 5 to 10 seconds, and then add the remaining powder. A metal whisk is best for mixing. Mix slowly at first, and then mix quickly and thoroughly for approximately 1 to 3 minutes. As long as the mix is bright pink, you can continue to mix. The mixture will lose its color as it begins the setting phase. The hands need to be in the mixture before all color is lost. Do not continue mixing if you notice color fading. Please note that the material will never be lump-free. Before the pink color of the mix completely fades and inserting your hands, quickly tap the container on a counter a couple of times to release any trapped air, and then immediately insert the posed hands into the container using a wiggling action. Move the hands around a while in the mix, and if there are 2 hands, rub them together inside the mixture so that the molding material can penetrate all areas and break any surface air bubbles. As long as the mixture is liquid, you can continue to wiggle the hands to break surface tension. Be sure the hands are not touching the bottom or sides of the container and are straight up and down. When the material loses all color, it is beginning the setting phase. The mold will set within about 3 to 5 minutes after color loss, but the exact time will depend on temperature. When fully set, the top of the molding material will not stick to your finger when touched, should be warm and spring back when pressed, and should not leave an indentation. Once this happens, keep hands in the mold for at least another 45 to 60 seconds, as the top will set before the bottom. More time is better, and the material will remain rubbery and flexible. Once the material has set, carefully remove one hand at a time by wiggling it around, starting at the wrist. Be sure the suction is broken before pulling out the hands. Work the hands out slowly and carefully, as there is no rush. Look inside the mold and remove any very thin or loose pieces of molding material. If the molding material is thin enough that it does not retain its shape when the bucket is lightly shaken, it should be removed. Then add some water to the mold, swish it around to pick up very small pieces of molding material, and then dump it out. Small sections of material that are directly in between hands in the center of the mold should also be removed as well, as you may not be able to remove them from the hardened cast. Prior to moving on to step 2, drain any excess water out of the mold. Be sure to hang on to the mold so that it does not slide out of the container. If needed, stuff paper towels inside and hold in an upside-down position for 1 to 2 minutes. Then, immediately move on to step 2. If for some reason you are unable to move on to step 2 to pour the casting stone right away, put the lid back on the molding container and store in the refrigerator for up to 24 hours. Step 2. Pouring the casting stone. Add 3½ cups, 850 milliliters of cold, distilled, or softened water to a disposable or glass mixing bowl. Set aside 1 teaspoon of casting stone powder for repairing any imperfections later. Then pour the remainder of the bag of casting stone powder into the mixing bowl. Let the powder dissolve into the water, then whisk until the mixture begins to thicken, about 3 to 8 minutes. Once blended well, begin to pour immediately. You will have about 5 to 6 minutes of liquid state left to pour the stone mixture before it begins to harden. Refer back to the printed instructions for more details. When pouring, fill the casting stone about 1/3 to 1/2 full of stone. Imagine where the fingers are and tilt the mold so that the casting stone mixture begins to fill the fingers and line all the areas inside of the mold. Rotate the container at an angle several times to fill all areas and release trapped air. Then continue to add the remaining casting stone mixture in 1 or 2 more increments as you rotate the bucket. Stir the remaining casting stone mixture in between pours as needed. Be sure to continue to angle and rotate the mold to fill all spaces. Once filled, tap the sides of the container or gently bounce the container on the working surface until air bubbles no longer rise to the surface. Pour any remaining casting stone into the bag it came in and throw it in the garbage. Do not pour it down any drains, as this may cause serious plumbing issues. Then immediately clean your bowl, if not disposable, with a paper towel. Allow your statue to harden inside the mold for 2 to 3 hours. If you cannot demold within 6 hours, store it upside down so that the moisture from the molding material can drain out. Wait no longer than 24 hours to demold. Step 3. Finishing your statue. Pull on opposite sides of the container so that the molding breaks its suction from the container and slide the mold out. Carefully peel the molding material away from the statue. Be extra careful around fingers, especially those of young children, as the statue is not at full strength until completely dry. The included wooden stick or a butter knife can be used if necessary to start multiple tearing points. The closer you get to the statue, peel the material away in smaller pieces. Try to handle the casting only near the wrists. Be sure to take your time on this step. Use the included wooden sticks and safety pin to remove small pieces of molding material from between fingers or other hard-to-reach areas. They can also be used to pop off small excess bits of casting stone that don't belong. While still wet, this is the time to give your statue a touch-up if needed. If there are any remaining air bubbles or holes, mix the remaining spoonful of casting stone powder with several drops of water to get a paint-like mixture. Then dab or paint the casting stone mixture into the holes. As the mixture thickens and turns into putty, you can use your finger or the supplied demolding stick to apply a small amount of casting mixture to the imperfection by rubbing across it. Sandpaper is also supplied to round off rough edges or to level out the base once the cast is dried. After you've fixed any imperfections, rinse the statue off under cold running water. Then set it aside and allow it to dry for at least 7 to 10 days in a room with plenty of natural light and good airflow. In humid climates and summer seasons, placing in front of a fan is ideal. Be sure to rotate the cast periodically so that all sides, including the bottom, have access to airflow and light. It is rare, but if the cast surface has any residual step 1 molding powder and the conditions are just right, mildew spores in the air could take hold on the surface. To resolve the issue, use a bleach wash, pen, or spray. Sealing, painting, or decorating your cast is optional. If you choose to do so, make sure the statue is completely dry 14 days or more to be safe.